My name's Oliver Dean. I'm called Mr. Dean to the children, and I teach at Gainsborough Primary School in Newham. I teach in year 3 and 4. I've also taught in year 2 as well for 5 years. I worked in year 2 during the first lockdown, and I was told about LbQ and the resources that are available. And I was in charge of setting the LbQ work for the year 2 children who were working at home. And I was setting reading, grammar, and also using the maths as well. I was starting to set work that was from LbQ, but then I started to edit the questions, to write my own questions. That's what I really enjoyed doing, especially with the maths. So I was taking photos off my laptop and putting them into LbQ and using it to bring the questions to life a bit. I also really used the assessment tool in that I could see which children were doing what at what time, and I was using it to target certain children the next day. It was great. We had a problem in this school with children logging on at certain times of day. So a lot of them are getting up quite late and also logging on quite late. So teacher assessment wasn't happening till the next day. Now, LbQ enabled us to set work at certain times, so the code runs out after a certain time, and that enabled all the children to be learning in the morning with their maths, their reading after lunch. It structured their day very well. Well, we could group the children. So my partner teacher was doing LbQ for the high ability children, and I was looking at the low ability children. So we can obviously see their names. So we could always see that a certain child was logging in on at a certain time, or even some children weren't even getting on at all because that could see with the data. I started to use LbQ when we returned to school in my reading sessions because I loved it so much during remote learning. I brought it into the classroom. So with reading sessions. So on the interactive whiteboard, I'd open LbQ and we would go through the text and look at the questions together. I was also printing out some things from LbQ and using them as written assessment tools, formal assessment. That was great. It's provided me with the opportunity to find high quality texts that are pitched at the right level for the children. So I don't have to worry about scouring the internet for texts and resources because I know that the LbQ, the subject and the level of the text are pitched really well. And that saved me so much time with resourcing things. It's really great. It's enabled me to focus more time on other things. LbQ is always there for a morning session where we'd assign the children a math session in the morning that they'd go on the laptops or the iPads and they'd get on with it, which allows me to maybe focus on some children in a smaller group setting. You know that the LbQ's there, the children know how to access it. So it saved me time for me to pursue things that really going to impact the children in a big way. I found that the student experience is really positive. They're desperate to get on it. They're always asking me to, what's the code? What's the code? When are we doing LbQ? You know, and that's so important for children because if a program or an app, if they don't like it, they really don't like it. And you can see from their learning behavior that they do like it and they're engaged with it. And they're constantly asking, you know, how did I do? How did I do? The children love it here. It's enabled us to work as a team in my key stage because Miss Wurgis, a partner teacher of mine, she will set the grammar and I will have a look at the maths and we can see how the children in the different classes are doing in terms of assessment. So I might have a child in my maths class who's in Miss Wurgis's class in the morning, and it's good to see how they're getting on with the morning work, definitely. It's changed things drastically, I think, especially with reading, because it means that the children, they don't have to have a physical text in front of them. They can have a Chromebook or an iPad, or we can be doing it together on the board. And I think we're having such a big push on reading since lockdown. LbQ's really helped us streamline that. We know what the children we know what they're reading. We can see what they're reading. They're not sat with a book in front of them, not engaging with it. The area has a high level of child poverty, and it has a high level of SEN need, one of the highest in the city. And that means that the children can't always take a book home. in English. If they're using LbQ at home, it's much more usable for them because there's pictures, it's animated, they're in control. So it's something that's really familiar to them. And that's so important in an area like this, because you know that you're targeting children at home who wouldn't usually be targeted. And also, when a child comes from a different country, they can't always read or write, and they can't always use their motor skills to write. And that's not a problem with LbQ. I definitely find myself having to come to school a lot earlier than I already do to source resources that are pitched at the right level. And also, as an assessment tool, I'd be really struggling because you can't really replace LbQ in terms of an assessment tool. That's where its great features are, in that you can actually see what the children are doing. It's kind of irreplaceable in that respect. I definitely think it's an assumption amongst teachers in this school that other schools, whether in our trust or in London, that they should be using it, and we just assume that they are because it is such a helpful tool. It's not a flash in the pan that sometimes can just be used on and off. It's a daily thing for us, sometimes 3 times a day. Learning by questions, it's such a big part of my practice now that wherever I find myself in my teacher career, if I'm in a different borough, if a different city, I'll still be using it there. And if it's not available, I'll be pushing for it to be purchased.